I'm Kirby Runyon, and I want to walk you through my spaceflight resource management for science operations training experience that I've been having down here in Houston, Texas, with the Lunar and Planetary Institute and the Johnson Space Center. I've been nicknaming this Mission Control Boot Camp for lunar scientists, and I'm in the Planetary Exploration Group in the space exploration sector. So, a little bit of background and motivation. NASA's Artemis program is taking humans back to the moon for the first time since 1972. Apollo 17 was the last human mission to the surface of the moon, and in fact, the last time that the United States soft landed a spacecraft on the surface of the moon. Apollo and Constellation, which is sort of the programmatic precursor to Artemis, it was canceled by the Obama administration. Apollo and the Constellation program taught us that just as astronauts need geology training or science training in general, especially if the astronauts don't have science backgrounds, geologists and other scientists need in turn to have spaceflight operations training. And that's going to be important as scientists work with astronauts and the rest of the flight control team for maximizing science return in a safe manner on human missions. One of the big programs during the Constellation program that was started under the Bush administration was a program called Desert Rats, where RATS was research and technology studies or something like that. Basically, they simulated moonwalks, geologic moonwalks in the desert using a bunch of hardware, testing out technology, concept of operations, and they tried a bunch of different techniques that were helpful and not. And one of the realizations from that was that scientists need to be trained in flight operations. NASA will soon, possibly in the 2022-2023 timeframe, so pretty soon, solicit proposals for Artemis lunar science teams. And these are people that will sit in the Mission Control Center. Some of them will be in the actual flight control room, the FICR, FCR. Some of them will be in the back room or the MIPSR, the multi-purpose support room. But in any case, there will be lunar scientists who are not regular Johnson Space Center people on site at Johnson Space Center to support the Artemis lunar surface operations. There's been a lot of hard-won knowledge over the decades about how to do lunar field geology and other surface science with people. And this knowledge needs to not just be preserved, but also passed down to new generation of lunar explorers. So, to fill that need, the Lunar and Planetary Institute, the LPI, and the Johnson Space Center, JSC, Center for Lunar Science and Exploration, and the Johnson Space Center, FOD, the Flight Operations Directorate, partnered for a 2-week training session in Houston, November 29th to December 9th, 2021. This was led and coordinated by David Kring of LPI and Therese Hunning of the Johnson Space Center. And we had discussion and lectures at LPI on exploration and geology architecture for both what is ostensibly planned for Artemis and what also happened during the Apollo program, which was, of course, 6 human landed missions on the moon from 1969 to 1972. The lectures at the Johnson Space Center were on flight control style communication and situational awareness that I'll touch on later. And we also had 3 on-console exercises at Johnson Space Center where we wore audio headsets and talked over voice loops and learned how to package calls. I'll talk all about that in a minute. And we did that to practice everything we talked about. This picture shown here is a picture I took from the viewing room at the historic Apollo Flight Control Room in the Mission Control Center that has been preserved as a National Historic Site. So one of the things we spent a lot of time talking about was situational awareness, your awareness of the situation. That really has 3 main components. By the way, as I talk about this video that's playing is a reconstructed view using Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter camera high-resolution images paired with actual flight telemetry from the Apollo 11 lunar module, showing what Neil Armstrong saw as he took manual control of the lunar lander and piloted it past this bouldery ejecta field from West Crater in order to find a flat, smooth, and relatively safe landing site. This is an area where situational awareness is extremely important. There's 3 main components of situational awareness. One is perception, the next one is comprehension, and finally, projection. Perception is your awareness of the raw data. What is true? Just the facts. The comprehension is the implications of that. What does it mean in kind of a slightly bigger picture sense about what's actually going on right now and its significance. And the projection is taking what's going on right now and its significance and forecasting into the future to anticipate possible outcomes. One of the things that came up with situational awareness is to spend more time ahead of time planning than you think you need. Really break down the task you're going to be doing and come up with a really solid plan. And even if you don't stick with that plan, it can still be worthwhile to have planned. Also, communicate. Just announce what you're doing in an organized way, not chaotically, but announce what you're doing. Listen, even if it's kind of like on the down low listening, listen to what other people are saying on the flight loops as well. Okay, we spent a lot of time learning about and practicing what's called packaging a call. Again, this is where you're on an audio headset communicating purely through your headpiece to other flight controllers, especially the flight director. The flight director is the head over all the flight controllers in the FCR, the flight control room. So good situational awareness is a prerequisite for even being able to make a good call in the first place. And a call begins with saying with them, you, and then the message. Them is who you're talking to. You is your console position. For instance, my console for this training was the science console. So my call sign was science. And then you have to deliver a concise verbal delivery of relevant information and suggestions about what to do, about paths forward. And it kind of follows a formulaic script that can be remembered with FIWT, failure, impact, workaround, and time. Of course, this varies depending on the precise circumstances, but FIWT is something to keep in mind. And then follow this other acronym, STAR, stop what you're doing. Think in detail about what you do and about your current situational awareness before you start coming up with a plan, and then start formulating a plan. Then act on that, but before you really act on it, double and triple check yourself and then review it. Get other people to check your work, triple check your work again, things like that. So I came up with this following example here on the rest of the slide. By the way, this picture is from Apollo 16 from one of the astronauts investigating a large boulder, and it's relevant to this example that I came up with. So in this example, let's say that Artemis astronauts are sampling different lithologies, different parts of a rock, different rock types made up of different mineralogies from an impact melt breccia. If you're not a geologist, that's a type of rock that's made together from gluing together lots of other different rock types. So it's very heterogeneous, a lot of variety within a rock, and it's kind of glued together, if you will, with cooled rock that was initially melted from the heat of the impact. And let's say this is near a crater rim. The teleoperated multispectral panoramic imager on the astronaut's rover fails. So the science officer or the Sci lead or one of the other science positions within the flight control room or in the back room might say, "Flight science, voltage on multispectral imager is below nominal. No action for crew. On your go, we can cycle the power to reset the power regulator. We expect this to take approximately 4 minutes. Science flight, copy needing to cycle the power on the multi-spec. Your go for that. Roger flight, copy go." Now, I've color-coded that some of these words here to correspond with some of the items above it. There's the them, you delivery. Flight, science, science, flight. I'm science. When in the first bullet point there, I would say flight, and then this is science, except that you don't say this is. The failure is that there is shown in red here, is the voltage on the multispectral imager is below nominal. The impact of that is in blue, no action required. The workaround is in green, on your go. So I'm prompting the flight director with an actionable suggestion to make this even more concise and quickly implemented. Of course, he or she could negate that and tell me to do something else, but I'm making it easy for them to allow me to do my recommended action. On your go, we can cycle the power to reset the power regulator. In time, we expect this to take approximately 4 minutes. Then the flight director says, "Science flight." I copy that. I understand what you need to do to cycle the power. They abbreviate what I said. They put it in their own words and abbreviate it to make sure they heard correctly. And they say, "You're go for that. We can do that." And then I simply respond and say, "Roger, flight, copy, go." And then in this scenario, the flight controller would send that command to cycle the power on this. So I attempted in this example to kind of compactify a lot of what we went over. Now, I have some thoughts for how Mission Control Boot Camp could impact work at APL. First of all, it starts with the idea that if astronauts need to learn science, then scientists need to learn spaceflight operations. So, coming up very soon, teams of lunar scientists and hopefully a lot of lunar scientists from APL will compete for NASA funding to form Artemis science teams for astronaut-enabled lunar surface science. If you haven't guessed, I'm very passionate about that. A competitive proposal from APL or any science team would include spaceflight research, management, or boot camp training in the team mix. Just knowing the science of what the astronauts could accomplish, just knowing that science isn't good enough. There needs to be representation on that team for how to communicate not just with the astronauts, but with the also other flight controllers as well. By the way, this picture I included here is a picture of the Desert Rats lunar geology simulations that were done in the approximately 2008 to 2011, and APL's own Jorge Nunez is shown right there. He got to participate in that a decade ago. I suspect, now I'm in the space exploration sector, but I still suspect that this sort of situational awareness, learning how to concisely verbally communicate in a fast-paced operational environment also would find a lot of synergy with other APL sectors with complex operations. I'm thinking particularly of sectors of APL concerned with warfighting, sea, land, and air, and also sectors in APL that are relatively new to space. For instance, RED. RED has been working with DARPA on some cislunar stuff. So I can see where parts of APL that haven't traditionally done space could benefit from this as well. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this could possibly enable new sponsored space activities from non-NASA potential sponsors such as DARPA, Space Force. And thinking kind of crazy here, maybe even the FAA or NTSB, if God forbid there was an accident with a commercial crewed spacecraft, the NTSB could investigate it and APL could potentially help with that. So again, my name is Kirby Runyon. I'm a planetary geologist here at APL. I had a great time learning this stuff, and I'd love to have you contact me with any questions, and hopefully this is something that will be beneficial for APL. Thanks for your attention.